The history of Timor-Leste, also known as East Timor, reaches far back into prehistory. Archaeological evidence shows that the island of Timor was already inhabited around 42,000 years before Christ by early human populations. These first inhabitants were hunter-gatherers who adapted to the tropical environment. Over the course of millennia, several waves of migration followed, particularly Austronesian peoples who arrived from about 3,000 years before Christ, bringing agriculture, seafaring skills, and new social structures. Later, Melanesian influences were added, contributing to the island's ethnic and cultural diversity. Before the arrival of Europeans, Timor was home to numerous local kingdoms and clan-based societies organized around kinship, ritual authority, and exchange networks. Trade in sandalwood was especially significant, as the wood was highly valued in China and India. Through these trading connections, Timor was integrated early into wider Southeast Asian commercial networks. In the early 16th century after Christ, beginning around the year 1511 after Christ, Portuguese sailors reached the island of Timor. They established trading posts and gradually expanded their colonial presence. Catholicism was introduced and over time became a central element of local identity. However, Portuguese control remained limited for centuries, largely confined to coastal areas, while the interior regions retained considerable autonomy. During the 17th century after Christ, the Dutch emerged as colonial rivals. Conflicts between Portugal and the Netherlands eventually led to the division of the island. This division was formally recognized in the year 1859 after Christ, with the western part of the island coming under Dutch rule and the eastern part remaining Portuguese. This division laid the foundation for what would later become East Timor. Throughout the Portuguese colonial period, East Timor remained economically underdeveloped. Forced labor, heavy taxation, and political marginalization shaped everyday life for much of the population. Nevertheless, a small educated elite gradually emerged, which would later play a key role in the struggle for independence. During the Second World War, East Timor suffered severe devastation. Although Portugal was officially neutral, Australian and Dutch forces occupied parts of the island in the year 1941 after Christ to prevent a Japanese invasion. Shortly thereafter, Japanese forces occupied East Timor. The Japanese occupation, which lasted until 1945 after Christ, was extremely brutal and resulted in the deaths of a significant portion of the population due to violence, famine, and disease. After the war, East Timor returned to Portuguese administration. In the 1960s and 1970s after Christ, resistance to colonial rule increased. Political parties were formed, including Fretilin, which advocated rapid independence. Following the Carnation Revolution in Portugal in the year 1974 after Christ, the new Portuguese government began the process of decolonization. On the 28th of November 1975 after Christ, East Timor unilaterally declared its independence. Only a few days later, on the 7th of December 1975 after Christ, Indonesian troops invaded the territory. Indonesia annexed East Timor and declared it its 27th province in the year 1976 after Christ. The international community, however, did not recognize this annexation. The Indonesian occupation lasted nearly a quarter of a century and was marked by widespread human rights violations. Estimates suggest that between 100,000 and 200,000 people died as a result of violence, starvation, and repression. Despite the harsh conditions, resistance movements, both armed and diplomatic, continued to operate. Prominent figures included José Ramos Horta and Bishop Carlos Ximénez Bello, both of whom later received the Nobel Peace Prize. A turning point came in the year 1999 after Christ, when, under international pressure, a referendum organized by the United Nations was held to determine East Timor's future. On the 30th of August 1999 after Christ, an overwhelming majority of the population voted in favor of independence from Indonesia. In the aftermath, pro-Indonesian militias carried out widespread violence, destroying large parts of the country. An international peacekeeping force intervened, and East Timor was placed under United Nations administration. After a transitional period, Timor-Leste officially declared its independence on the 20th of May, 2002 after Christ, becoming one of the youngest states in the world. In the first years following independence, the country faced immense challenges, including poverty, weak institutions, political tensions, and outbreaks of violence. In particular, the crisis of the year 2006 after Christ, triggered by internal conflicts within the security forces, led to unrest and renewed international involvement. In the years that followed, the political system gradually stabilized. Revenues from oil and gas fields in the Timor Sea enabled investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, while also creating a dependency on finite natural resources. Democratic elections were held regularly, and transfers of power were largely peaceful. By the year 2025 after Christ, Timor-Leste had continued to develop as a sovereign state with a strong national identity shaped by suffering, resistance, and solidarity. Despite ongoing social and economic challenges, the country is widely regarded as an example of successful international reconstruction and of the long, often painful journey from colonialism and occupation towards self-determination and independence.